Joining also on the telecast with me is Advocate Manasvi Thapar. Advocate Thapar, in terms of the comparisons that we are drawing, and I'm going point by point, and particularly in terms of the number of graphs and statistics that have been provided and the inflation figures, which Congress continues to attack BJP on, that the inflation is at an all-time high. It was no different during the UPA era too.
Yeah, one thing which we need to understand why I say this is because the white paper comparison is a decade old. Generally, comparisons or a year-on-year comparison, what happens in the corporate world is that my yearly quarter result from previous year to this year is different. So this is you are comparing one government with the other government. How does we actually have a progressive understanding of, if we are talking about the economy of India, if we are talking about the financials of India, the comparison, a relative comparison could have been that 2014, UPA ended and you created a white paper in 2015 and you could have said that this was the shortcomings of that government and that is how we've improved right now. Now, what is the comparison right now? What we are seeing is that 2014, which is a 10-year-old story, you're comparing in 2024. India in 10 years is a completely different country, and every time India is going to, after every decade, India is going to be a new country because the largest youth bank, the largest industries are coming in India, and it's a logical thing to happen in India. But this kind of comparison, that's why I'm saying is not a very logical comparison. If you
fair enough. Okay, all right, point taken. Something similar is also being done by the Congress when they put out the black paper, because they mention about the price rise that has happened during the time from 2004 to 2024. Now they've picked up these key products, key consumables. Then they've taken LPG, they've taken milk, they've taken mustard oil, and so on and so forth. And they have shown inflation to various percentages. Now, again, you need to take a look at how the economy has grown, the price of rupee versus the dollar. You need to have all these aspects in mind. So a similar logic, similar argument can be put forth when the comparisons are being drawn. Second of all, I also think that, after the BJP came into power in 2014, it obviously needed time to settle down, to find a balance, to lay down its roots. That took 5 years. And then the next 5 years was all about bringing into pace the policies, the schemes, the initiatives that had decided to launch in 2014 and afterwards as well. So it took the BJP that entire time period of 2014 to 2019, that as a matter of fact, and now 2024, to then stabilize itself, then bring the economy into moving out forward, and then creating this comparison with a white paper that telling us that the 10 years that passed by before Modi government came into being and the 10 years that have passed by after the Modi government came into being.
Megha, we are giving too much of leverage to BJP by giving them 5 years to settle in the government. Why? Because in India, whoever the government is, the bureaucracy is going to be the same. The people working in the country are going to be the same. It is only the political people may change, but the policies do not change overnight. The policies don't make a somersault changes. Only thing is the working style could change. And it is also the aspiration of the people. It is not the government who does the business. It is the people of the country in any country do the business. So right now, kind of comparison is a very short-sighted comparison. What you also laid a very good point was that Congress coming out with a black paper. See, Congress is in opposition. Congress does not have that leverage. It's always on the back foot since last 10 years. So whatever BJP does, they try to create a narrative around it. So the narrative is always put forward by the BJP. So they don't have any other option but to compare things which BJP missed in the last 10 years. So that is how they are trying to create a comparison.
Is this working for the UPA? Is this working for the Congress?
See, as of now, I don't see in the last 10 years anything have worked for the Congress. See, in opposition or while you are in politics, you have to put a counter forward. If what I am saying, they put this kind of counter forward, they will not have any kind of takers to this. But economically, this is the only way which can make sense. If you run a company, you compare your company year on year. quarter by quarter. You don't compare your company 10 years ago, what was it? 10 years in the future, what is it going to
Okay.
be? You can have a
Okay,
vision
all
for
right.
that.
All right.
So
One more, there is one more important highlight that has been made under the white paper, and they say that the UPA, which continues to take credit for the 1991 reforms, and the allegation is that when the UPA came into power in 2004 under Manmohan Singh, they disregarded all the policies that had been initiated in 1991, which was incidentally under PV Narasimha Rao's government.
Now that's a very interesting point they are making right now in 2024 is while they were in opposition during the 1991 reforms, these kind of questions which they are raising right now after 33, 32 years of gap, this does not hold any stand because they have the power, they have the mandate, they have the voice. They're trying to make sense out of nothing, which is an old history. Now they can compare it, the 1948's budget, or they can compare 1952's budget with today's budget. That is not going to make sense. India has grown, people have changed, policies have changed. There is artificial intelligence which has come into play. If you ask the first batch of our politicians what is artificial intelligence, it's not there. So you cannot compare. On the contrary, the ideological way would have been that let us do there could be a double white paper. One could be a political white paper, which is out right now. One could be an economical white paper, like in 2022 and 2023, the financial year. This was our white paper in vis-a-vis today's financial year. That's a logical white paper which you're presenting in the country. Yes, yes, we
Okay.
had.
Ajadua, does that work? Would it work for the government if you compare it year on year, keeping in mind the policies, the schemes that are rolled out? Take a gestation period. You are going to take 5 years, you are going to take 10 years for the results to reach to the lowest common denominator.
Mega, that is why we had planning commission which was abolished, and we had Niti Aayog. That is why it's a vision. It's a large country with the largest population of the world. It is going to take time, but we will always know what is the litmus paper of our policies.
Okay.
That's why this is a good white paper, Shurwat. But the Shurwat is just to hamper the work done by the UPA. If it may hamper the government. It is irrelevant, but it will help the country. The idea is that we take the country forward. That's why year on year.
Okay, Ajadua, you want to make a point?
Planning Commission has gone, because there were a relevance of it at one point of time when we were trying to have a planned economy. We had modeled ourselves on the Soviet Union's input-output model scheme. But as we have moved forward to the private sector, reliance upon private sector with government doing as a catalyst and an essentials, probably the Planning Commission was also losing its relevance. Hence, a think tank, whether it should be not just a think tank alone, but also given certain powers, etc. That's a subject for another debate. I don't think I'd like to discuss those today.
Okay.
But having said that, I would say that the priorities of every government would change from stage of development at which you are and at what you were. Now that the government has been able to stabilize the economy out of what was the previous position, or the world's shrinking of the world's economy, or slowing down in the last 3 or 4 years post-pandemic. The question is the priorities now going forward. Now that the cake size is larger, let me just put it in a simple terminology. The cake's distribution also we have to look at. That inequalities, and maybe once you have a larger or better distribution of the cake, then everybody has a slice of it. The aggregate demand within the country will increase. We would not have to depend so much on exports. That is, the external volatility would start affecting us much less if there is. The reason is the poorer people spend almost all their income. Middle income people spend most of it. The rich save most of it because their basic needs, etc., are met. So we do face a problem. That's why our private sector has not been putting in money in capital formation for the last 3 to 4 years, is because they say the capacity utilization is low. Why is capacity utilization low? Because the aggregate demand within the country is low and we are not able to export those. So that will be, I would go looking forward to Now that we are a large economy, priorities will fall in line, and that will include a greater government expenditure, a greater attention to healthcare, to education, those kind of things which come a little later in the stages of development.
Okay.
First, we have to increase our income, which we have done well, and now let's go about it, making it a little more egalitarian.
Okay, then Sharad, again the question that comes into mind is the economy of our country doing well by default, or has there been a political will, has there been maximum governance, minimum governance and maximum development that has been the fundamental charter of the current government? Is there political will towards speeding up the growth rate of our country, speeding up the ease of doing business in our country? And another big question, could it have been achieved in the UPA era, in the 10 years of Manmohan Singh government? And we are at this point of time being able to reach the level that could have been reached, and that led to the slowdown of our economy.
Well, to answer your question, the previous part of your question, Megha, that does this happen by default or has this happened by default? Well, nothing happens by default. In fact, that is also the answer to, what Manasvi pointed out earlier, that, it will be unfair to let them have 5 years to settle down, that we say, okay, fine, for 5 years you were busily settling down, and then, in 2019, you actually started doing things. The fact of the matter is, because what took probably more than 60 years to form could not have been uprooted, overnight. You can change the policies, you can change the bureaucracy also, you change the officers. Every time a new minister comes, you see a new team working under him. So it takes a while. By the time the policies come into play, by the time the policies get implemented, by the time the policies start taking shape, I think it does take a while. But without political will, Megha, nothing happens. I mean, you have to be coming clean on it. As I said in the beginning, I would like to reiterate, I think Manasvi missed the first part of the discussion where we touched upon what he said, that is it fair to do a comparison which is historical? Because as he rightly said, in corporate world, we compare year on year, it's a Y on Y progress. But then the problem here is that what I said later, that if you compare on absolute terms, yes, what he's saying is correct. Because in absolute terms, if I was getting a salary of 20,000 rupees in probably 2004, today my salary is 2 lakh rupees in 2024. Obviously, I cannot say that my salary has grown, because so have the expenses, so has the inflation, so on. We always take on relative terms, which is why I'm commenting more than the data on the relative terms, from fragile 5 to top 5. Today, I mean, all of us travel on the panel. Maybe the whole country doesn't travel abroad, but at least people sitting on this panel, we do travel abroad. The kind of respect you get from the people outside, they look at you in a different way, the way they used to look at you in 2004, 2005, or probably 2009, 2010, and the way you are looked at as an Indian. I think the whole concept has changed. The way I think India is becoming the new investment hub, India is becoming the new manufacturing hub, India is becoming the new economic superpower, even though the per capita income is still lower, even though we have a certain degree of unemployment, we have poverty which is inherent to our economy, we have an agriculture sector which is not doing that great, we are still catching up on manufacturing, we are still struggling with the problems of inequality of income and wealth. All these problems are there, but despite that, what is the takeaway here is that we are at least on the right path. As I said, the top level of the government is corruption free. I put it in inverted commas. The top level of the government is corruption free. And it is this clean intent. It is this honest governance. You said maximum governance, minimum governance. I say honest governance. It is this honest governance which has sailed the matter for this government, which is why things have become noticeable. It is not that the previous UPA government was not doing anything. It was just sitting like that. But the clean intent came under question. If you see the whole list of scams which have been revealed, well, I mean, because there is a political slugfest going, some of them may be true, some of them may not be true, some of them may be partly true. But the fact of the matter is that there was a question mark. If that was not the case, Megha, now my concluding remark on this part of your show, if this was not the case, people would not have voted UPA out. There was something wrong with UPA, where people did not like. And that one thing was, which I speak to a lot of people, the pulse of the electorate, even though I don't come from a political background. They know that there was something wrong. ऊपर corruption था, भ्रष्टाचार था, पैसे खाते थे, हर deal में commission होता था, and so and so. You do hear this kind of things from the electorate. I think that is what voted UPA out. And the moment this government came, a clean governance
came. Yes, you're right. Because 2014, the campaign that BJP had targeted Congress on was that there is massive corruption, and they particularly spoke about the 2G scam, Colgate, Augusta Westland. You talk about the Commonwealth Games scam. So that was the momentum on which the BJP ended up winning the election.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.